And so I'd like to talk about how we can bring mindfulness, how we can bring the Dharma into a very important arena, into an arena where there is an incredible lack of equanimity and mindfulness. So it's extremely helpful to bring our practice into those places where we are tempted to fall asleep, both individually and collectively, bringing the light into the darkest places. So let's explore how the Buddha would vote, not so much in terms of which political party he would choose, but rather how would he engage the process, and how, more importantly, can we engage the process with the intention of living the Dharma in our life, being awake, being mindful, and participating in this very important collective activity. So let's just unpack this a little bit. A couple things that are a little bit enigmatic in Buddhism because it arises from a different set of assumptions than our Western culture does in many ways. First of all, the teachings are about being conditional, being unconditionally happy. The potential for in awakening means that we are awakened, we are happy in the deepest sense of that word, without regard to any external circumstance of our life. So that's what's meant by freedom. We are completely free in the sense that our inner state of well-being is independent of whatever is going on around us. So that we're not trying to arrange the world to make us happy. So in that sense, we are non-attached and in one sense indifferent. And yet in another very real sense, in Buddhism there is not the sharp distinction made between our inner world and our outer world. So to practice the Dharma is not to practice it only internally, but to practice it in every aspect of our life, every arena of our life, both internal and external. I think a classic example of this is in the Zen tradition, and in the later Buddhist traditions, there's much more emphasis on engaging the Buddhist practice, the Dharma practice in our everyday life. So one Zen proverb that I think is appropriate to this and for us this morning is one where this eager young Westerner comes to a Buddhist temple in Japan, and he's traveled a long ways and he's searched for a long time and finally found this master that he believes will bring him wisdom and enlightenment. And so he's very excited as he goes before the master, and he bows and he asks the traditional question, what is Zen? Which is basically, please give me the teachings. So he bowed and said, what is Zen? And the Roshi, the Zen master, paused, regarded him, and he said, did you have breakfast this morning? Well, the young man was a bit taken aback because he thought Buddhism was about enlightenment and awakening and not about eating breakfast, you see. So the young man said, well, yeah, I did have breakfast this morning. And then the master said, and did you wash your bowl? And the young man said, well, actually not. I was in such a hurry to get here, and I was so eager to see you that I didn't take time to wash my bowl. And the Zen master said, go, wash your bowl. So that was the teaching that was given to the young man, that practicing the Dharma is about living impeccably, not just internally, but also externally. It's living intentionally. It's living mindfully, with equanimity, with compassion, with clarity. So let's talk about this some more, because what we're really talking about here is about how to bring the practice into our everyday life. And this is one arena where we need the Dharma in our world today. And it's an arena where it's very easy for us to go to sleep, particularly at this particular time in our history. So how does our Dharma practice influence how we vote in the sense of our approach to it? So let's take a look at the basic Buddhist practice, which is summed up in the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, the fourth noble truth being the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path consists of three basic categories, three general categories. There's 8 steps. They're not exactly sequential steps, but there's eight folds, if you will, 8 aspects. And each of these fall into one of 3 categories. So the first 2 fall in the category of wisdom. So we cultivate wisdom. The next 3 fall in the category of ethical practice, practice of morality and ethics, cultivating the heart, mindful of our relationships. And then the last 2 fall in the category, or the last 3, I should say, fall in the category of meditation practice. So let's look at each of these in relationship to the political world. So we'll start with the last one first, mindfulness. How can I bring mindfulness to this part of my life, this part of our world? Well, mindfulness means paying attention, and it means simply adding nothing to what we experience. Seeing is just seeing, hearing is just hearing, sensation is just a sensation, pleasure is pleasure, pain is pain, joy is joy. We don't add anything to it. We don't add that commentary. You know, we've all got a commentary, a commentator, that's the word, commentator, sitting up here, somewhere between our ears and our eyes, telling us what everything means and how the world should be. You see? So if we can put that person out of business for a while at least, and just pay attention to what is. So we do that in our meditation practice. We follow the breath, be aware of sensations in the body, even thoughts and feelings. We don't add anything to that. Hearing and seeing, we don't add anything to that. So my question to you is, can you watch the evening news that way? Can we hear what happened without adding anything to it? We can, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because as soon as we hear about somebody doing something, immediately our inner commentator wants to jump in and say, this is right, this is wrong, you know, oh my God, or at last, or whatever our story is, you see. And it's so interesting in the time we live where we've got 2 basic viewpoints. In one perspective's dream is the other perspective's nightmare, and vice versa. So there's 2 very different meanings, 2 very different interpretations. And the more we're entrenched in the interpretation, the less we are able to be present to what's really here, what's really going on. And of course, we live in a time where in so many areas, facts and opinion are becoming very blurred. It's hard to get a newscast or a commentary that's not biased in one way or another. Very difficult. Even history, even teaching history today is controversial because history itself is embedded in context, in meaning. So, what is? Can I take in what is and let go of my commentary and not pay attention to somebody else's commentary? I just need to know what's going on, and that's all I need to know. I don't even have to form an opinion. You know, it's actually possible to live without opinions. Now, I don't know what that would do to the news channels today or to most of our world. It would sure silence a lot of cocktail parties, I'm sure. And Thanksgiving dinners, et cetera, if we didn't have our opinions. But wouldn't it be great to just sit in silence and love one another rather than open our mouths and live in a world of separation? And that separation is not so much about what's really here as what meaning we give to what's here. And so if we can suspend our judgment and just pay attention to what's here and make peace with whatever our reaction is. Certainly we're going to have opinions, certainly we're going to have reactions, but the important thing is if I can separate my commentary from what's real. If I know what's real, if I know what my opinion is, if I can separate those two, that's what's really crucial. It's when we get those mixed up that we really get into trouble in our world today. Because whatever we hear is going to trigger something almost always, particularly in the news today. But if we can be aware of that trigger and just feel that experience internally, not act on it, just see it for what it is. It's the mind's reaction based on conditioning. But simply be with what's here right now. This is what I heard. This is what I'm feeling. I'm breathing. The sun's shining or it's not. It's raining or it's not. It's day or it's night, whatever. Just being with what is. When we live in the world of the commentator, we lose the beauty of the world as it really is. And it's really quite beautiful when we can be simply with what is, in a very innocent way. So mindfulness is being aware, adding nothing to that awareness. Or if we do, know that we're adding it, and it's not the same as reality. It's just our noise as opposed to somebody else's noise. And it doesn't mean we don't have to value our perspective. I mean, that's part of who we are as human beings. We have backgrounds, we have values, we give meaning to things. But again, it's coming from our perspective, our history, our perception. It's not the reality of things as they really are. And that's what the Dharma really is all about. What is real? What is real? That's what the Dharma is. What is real about this experience, about this moment? Not what's my opinion or what should be or what could be or what they say or they don't say, but what's real? What's true? Second aspect of the Dharma practice is ethics. And ethics basically, in some summary, is to do no harm. To do no harm through our words, through our actions. And in the positive sense, it's to promote values and to act from those values of generosity and kindness and goodwill. So we cultivate the wholesome qualities, life-giving qualities. And we don't act on the other qualities that arise. We look at right livelihood. How am I living my life? How am I earning my living? Am I doing it in a way that's not harmful to others? This can be a difficult question today because we live in a very complex world. Sometimes we may live with the best of intentions and don't realize that we're unwittingly contributing to pollution or we're contributing to exploitation. So it takes some effort to be mindful, to live intentionally. How is the way that I'm living impacting others? How is the way that I'm living impacting the earth? Then can I support those public officials that I see being mindful, that I see being generous, that I see being kind? We so much focus on those that aren't. We become preoccupied with what's wrong. And when we become preoccupied with what's wrong, we are just trying to put out the fire by throwing gasoline on it. So if we can identify what it is that we're for, what values, what do I stand for? What's meaningful to me? So the third aspect is that of wisdom. Wisdom. Right understanding. Right motivation. Am I doing the right thing for the right reason? That's the essence of wisdom. Right doesn't mean right as opposed to wrong. It doesn't mean that if I'm doing it one way and you're doing it a different way, that I'm right and you're wrong. Right means intentional. Right means skillful. Right means being aligned with the Dharma practice. Right intention. Am I doing this for personal gain? Am I doing this avoiding something within me? Or am I doing this because I want to be clear, open-minded, and open-hearted? Very important to be aware of our attitude when we approach not just voting, but our whole attitude towards the world, towards the news, towards the political world, towards the social world. So much today, there's an attitude of hatred. Hatred is when we see someone else as the enemy. Hatred is when we see someone or something as bad that needs to be eradicated. That's very dangerous. Hatred is dangerous. So when it arises, it's very important to not act on it, not to speak from hatred. If that's what's going on internally, we simply be with that experience and let that burn off through mindfulness practice, through cultivating the heart, but not acting it out. Blaming and fault finding And again, it's so easy to see what's wrong, what's bad, what's destructive. It's all over the place. But can we not be blinded to what we stand for, what we see as right and good and true? Cynicism. There's a lot of that going around these days. Cynicism is dangerous because it's a way of not feeling what we're really feeling, which is oftentimes anger mixed with a sense of despair and hopelessness. And that's what cynicism is, kind of a cover for hopelessness and despair, and a sense of helplessness sometimes. So we may have the attitude of they're all crooks, or they're all crazy, or there's no good politicians, or the world's nuts and that's all there is to it. Forming an attitude, a blanket attitude, rather than being open and receptive to what's really there. Cynicism is rampant today, and it's surpassed only by apathy. I think apathy may be even more dangerous. Because when we're apathetic, we don't even know that we're apathetic, and we probably don't even care that we're apathetic. Because underneath apathy may lie all of these others: cynicism, anger, hatred, fear. Our biggest political party, our largest political party, is not the Republican or the Democrat. It is the party of apathy. There were far more people voted for apathy in our last election than voted for either candidate. So, waking up is not easy. It puts us in touch with our discomfort sometimes. It's a lot easier to go to sleep. It's a lot easier to fall into apathy or cynicism or hatred or whatever the case might be. So it takes work. And it's inevitable that we're going to feel fear and anger when we feel our values threatened, when we feel something that is deeply meaningful to us, when we feel it being attacked or threatened in some way. If we can feel fear, anger, and any other emotion internally and do our practice, it will burn its way clear, and we'll be able to see more clearly in the long run. And as Gandhi has pointed out, when he was asked about, does he ever get angry? And he said in so many words, hell yes, I get angry a lot. But I don't let my anger consume me. I don't act in for my anger. He says, I sit with my anger. I transmute it into patience. And then from that patience, then I have the fuel to engage in change. You see, fear and anger can be great motivators if we're not reacting from the fear and anger. But just let it be and recognize there may be some wisdom embedded in that. There may be something that isn't quite right. There may be something I can do constructively. If we act from the fear and anger, we're acting reactively and destructively. But if we can sit with the fear and anger, we will burn off the destructive aspect of it, and we can perhaps discern, okay, what can be done? What can be done? So know what you're for, not just what you're against. Very, very important. And to work with what you're in favor of. And find political action groups and candidates that do support your values. And not just voting out of anger, or not voting even out of anger. So, how would the Buddha vote? He would vote mindfully. He would vote ethically. He would vote with wisdom and discernment. That's how he would vote. So I hope you vote the same way the Buddha would. Thank you for being with me.